Okie dokie. Hello, welcome. Today we're going to do a bit of an unstructured lesson. We're going to learn how to use the Classpad today. So hopefully you have a model that looks like what you can see on my screen. Hopefully you can follow along and learn some of the basics. Now, if your Classpad's not turned on, first of all, just press this clear button here, and as long as you've got batteries, it should turn on. I just want to emphasize that with the Classpad, the batteries are not rechargeable, okay? The cable that comes with your Classpad does not charge your Classpad. If you plug it in, you will blow up the Classpad. Do not try to use the cable to charge your batteries, okay? I promise you, it will not work and you'll destroy it, so don't do it. Alrighty, if you turn your Classpad on, you should be on this screen here. Now, if you're not on this screen for whatever reason, you can just press the menu button and it'll take you straight back here. Now, this menu has a whole lot of little individual apps, just like a smartphone. And we can swipe right to see some more functions here. But first of all, we just want to focus on this main window today. And we're going to click on main. Now, main is where we do most of our work. So if you click on main, you should end up here. Now, if at any time you want to come to main again, you can just press main button here. It'll take you right down to main, which is really handy. Now, in my case, I've got some numbers here from the last time I was using this. Now, if I want to get rid of these numbers to have a fresh start, at the very top, I can just go to edit. I can just go to clear all, and that will just clear my whole entire screen, giving me a nice fresh start, which is really handy. Now, something I find quite helpful is to have the correct settings on your Classpad. Now, the Classpad has many different settings you can use, but just for today, we're going to come down to this little white bar here, and can you just tap on the word standard to make sure it says decimal? Make sure this one says real and not complex, and make sure this one says degree rather than gradians or radians, okay? We just want to keep things nice and simple to start with. We can change these settings later on, but for now, this is what we want to start with. Alrighty, let's practice typing some numbers in. So for example, I'm going to come down to my physical keyboard here. So this should be all buttons you can touch. I will go like 100 plus 20 times 3, take 4, and then I press this EXE button at the bottom right for it to actually give me an answer. Now, if you look here, it's applied BIMDAS. It's gone, okay, multiplication is the most important. 20 times 3 is 60. 100 plus 60 take 4 is 156. Pretty cool. Now, at any time, you can just come up here and change the numbers. What if I wanted this to be a 4 instead? So I can press this backspace button here, and I can replace it. Really straightforward. What if I wanted to copy my answer? Well, what you can do is you can just highlight your answer and just click and drag it to where you want it. Really straightforward. So maybe I can half that now. Maybe that's what I wanted to do. Pretty cool. Now, what if I divided by something that was a bit yuckier? Let's say I divided by 7 and I get this gross decimal here, okay? Now that's cool. That's fine. What if I wanted my answer to be a fraction instead? Well, what I can do is, where we clicked decimal before, if we change it to standard, it's going to give you fractions as answers. So if I just come back up to here, this operation, make sure the cursor is blinking there, and press enter, I get a fraction as an answer. And this fraction should be simplified, which is really handy. Now, what if you wanted to type in a fraction? Well, if you go to keyboard, this button here, it pops up with this whole additional menu within menus of things you can do. I don't want you to freak out. We're going to take it step by step. Let's go to Math 1. Now in Math 1, I want you to look for this icon here, okay? This is your dedicated fraction button. You can press this and it'll give you a fraction template. For example, what if I did 40 over 18? Now because I'm in standard, as we can see here, if I press EXE, it should simplify it to 20 over 9. Hey, that's pretty handy. What if I wanted to go back to decimals though? Well, just tap standard, it's on decimal, and now if I come back up here and press EXE, I get a decimal answer. So you can very quickly and easily switch between decimals and fractions on the Classpad just by tapping that button and turning it on and off. Alright, back to looking at this keyboard here. There's a lot of different buttons you can see here, and it can be a bit overwhelming at first with all the things you can do. Typically for year 11 applications, you're going to be using Math 1 a lot. Math 2 as well, and possibly trig. These are the 3 sections you'll use the most. Now, if you wanted to do something like a square root, you've got a square root button here. We've also got pi, which is handy. You got some exponents and all that sort of stuff, which is really cool. I'll just quickly show you some shortcuts though to save you some time. If you ever want to make a fraction just like we did here and you're feeling a bit lazy, I'm going to show you a shortcut. So I'm just going to press keyboard to get rid of the keyboard. If you press shift and then divide, you'll get a fraction straight away. So it's very easy for you to type in fractions. So I can go plus, shift, divide, let's say 2/3, and we get an answer here. And of course, if you want that to be a fraction, just come back up here, go to standard, we're back to it. Really straightforward. If you wanted to find the square root of something, for example, I want to find the square root of 16, I can just go shift and then press this little eyebrow symbol here. And this gives me a square root. So the square root of 16 is 4. That's cool. Now this little eyebrow symbol, if you don't press shift, is just a power. So for example, 4 to the power of 2 is 16. So we can do squares and square roots quite easily. Alrighty, as you can see, my screen is getting a bit cluttered with stuff. So I'm just going to go to edit, clear all, and go, yep. Now, something you might find useful is storing answers using variables. So we can introduce variables as letters to help us solve different problems. For example, I want you to press on keyboard just to get this keyboard up. And I want you to go to VAR right here. This stands for the variables section. And I got a whole bunch of letters you can use here. So for example, let's say I've got the number 7. If I go 7 and then I press this little arrow that's pointing to the right, that means assign to. So I want to assign 7 to A. If I press EXE, it just says 7. Not very impressive. But every time I type A now, it treats it as a 7. I've told the Classpad that A is 7. So if I go A plus A, it gives me 14 because it thinks it's 7. Or what if I give something else to B? What if I say 3 belongs or is assigned to B? So now I can go A plus B is 10 because 7 plus 3 is 10. Hey, that's pretty cool. What if I was doing a problem, let's say 20 times 304, and I wanted to use this answer later? I could assign it to a variable. So whatever that answer is, assign it to C. Cool. So now C's my answer, and maybe I had to, I don't know, times it by 40 or something after. And we can easily do that. So you can assign numbers to variables and then use those variables to help you solve problems later on. So that can be a handy way of keeping track of your numbers. Now, if you ever want to delete your variables, just clear the page so it's a fresh start every time. Just go edit and it says clear all variables. I'd do that just to make sure I'm not accidentally leaving stuff in there that will stuff me up another time. So there's variables all good. If I type in A now, it's just going to say A because I clear all the variables. Alrighty, that's pretty useful for all the stuff I've shown you so far, but I just want to show you one more cool little thing which I think is really neat. If we just close our keyboard here, and I'm just going to clear my screen again because it's getting a bit messy, I want you to go to Action at the top, Action, Advanced, and I want you to go to Solve. Now this is really cool. This is an equation solver. Any equation you put in, it'll automatically solve for any answers that it can find. Now, you'll notice on your keyboard down here, you've got X, Y, and Z. So we've got some physical variable buttons here. Now, these are the same variables as you find here, okay? So you've got a lot more variables here. But typically speaking, you probably won't need a whole alphabet of variables for a problem. So if you can get away with just using X, Y, and Z, why not? Let's just make up a simple example. I am thinking of a number in my head called X. When I add 5 to it, the answer equals 12. Now, this is where I'm going to use the equals button here. If I press equals and type in 12, it spits out the answer, X equals 7. So it's actually really clever. It can work out how to solve equations. Doesn't matter how tricky the equation is, you can typically solve most things using this. So for example, if I go Action, Advance, Solve, 2x plus 5 equals -4. What was the number that gave me that? X was negative 4.5. So equation solver is a pretty handy thing to have on your Classpad as well. Alrighty, there is so much stuff I can show you on the Classpad, but we're just going to take it bite by bite. This should be enough skills to get you started and helping you get more familiar with using the Classpad. Now, if you want to turn off your Classpad, it's quite simple. Just press the shift button and then press clear, and it's gone. It's gone to sleep. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you have an idea of some of the basics of the Classpad. If you need help or any questions, feel free to ask me down below. Otherwise, if you just Google Classpad 2, there's a whole bunch of help videos out there which are really useful. Hopefully this helps you get started.